Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I remember meeting Alistair at a party hosted by his fraternity. He stepped in when some creepy guy was hitting on me and wouldn't take no for an answer. Not long after, we started dating. It was a strange coincidence that we both came from Bay County, even though we lived in different parts, just 20 minutes apart. A few months into our relationship, I wasn't seeing anyone else. I still remember the first time we made love, 3 months after we met. He took me to a lovely restaurant, and afterward, we went dancing. We ended up making out in his car, and I was half undressed when I whispered for him to take me somewhere private. We drove to a Motel 6, and that night, we made love for the first time. From then on, we were exclusive and planned to get married after he earned his master's degree. A year after he graduated, we tied the knot. A couple of years later, Amanda was born, and 2 years after her, Andrew joined our family. We both adore our children and can't imagine life without them. Today, I'm enjoying the company's St. Patrick's Day party. We have a great spot to watch the parade. Normally, Alistair would have his car in the parade, but this year, it's not working, so he's riding with a friend. He'll call me when he's finished with the parade, and I'll pick him up a few blocks away before we come back to the party. My parents are watching the kids so we can enjoy the day. It's a casual gathering, and I'm wearing a slacks and top combo that's not too revealing but still flattering. My boss, Henry Miles, has been flirting with me all afternoon, and I've been playfully flirting back. His wife couldn't make it because she's not feeling well. You know the saying, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Henry is tall, around 6 feet, and weighs about 200 pounds. He's in great shape, with a body that would make anyone swoon. He's been putting the moves on me since I arrived, and for some reason, I've been responding. As the classic cars rolled by, I looked for Alistair but didn't spot him. I wondered where he was. After a while, I went back inside to grab another drink. Let's head upstairs to the balcony. No one's up there right now, Henry suggested. I followed him, and once we got there, he kissed me. I found myself kissing him back, and soon it became passionate. His touch set me on fire. I broke the kiss and pulled his hand away. No, someone might see us, I said, playfully shaking my finger at him. He removed his hand but pulled me closer, wrapping both arms around me for another kiss. I put my arms around his neck, and we kissed even more passionately. Suddenly, my phone rings, and I pull it out of my pocket. It's only Alistair calling, so I send it to voicemail and turn off the phone. Without hesitation, I go back to kissing Henry until we hear footsteps coming up the stairs. We quickly break the kiss and return to the party as if nothing happened. The evening continues, and I'm having fun flirting with Henry and a few of the partners. As darkness falls, any thoughts of picking up Alistair vanish from my mind. Before I know it, I find myself upstairs in a bedroom, naked, lying in bed with Henry. Oh my God, he's big, much bigger than Alistair. Exhausted from the intensity of what just happened, we both fall asleep. The next thing I realize, it's 10 p.m., and we're the only ones left in the house. In a rush, we take a quick shower and get dressed. After a brief, lingering kiss, we leave the house and head to our cars. As I drive away, guilt begins to weigh on me. This is the first time I've ever cheated on Alistair. Panicked, I race to my parents' house to pick up the kids. They have school tomorrow, and I should have been there hours ago. I know my mom is going to give me the third degree when I arrive. I pulled into my parents' driveway around 10:30 p.m. and noticed the kitchen lights were off. I knocked on the door, and after a moment, my dad finally turned on the porch light to see who was outside. He opened the door, both he and my mom standing there with confused looks on their faces. "Why are you here?" my dad asked. "I came to get the kids and take them home," I replied. At that, my mom pushed past my dad and started giving me the third degree, grilling me about why I was so late. After what felt like forever, I managed to escape and headed back to my car, frustrated and fuming. I couldn't believe Alistair didn't call to let me know he had already picked up the kids. Instead, I had to stand there for 10 minutes while my mom lectured me, tearing me apart. I was steaming about it the entire drive home, and in my frustration, I didn't even think to check my phone. I pulled into our driveway around 11 p.m., parked in the garage, and walked into the house. There was Alistair, casually sitting in the living room, watching the news. Without giving him a chance to explain, I exploded. "You dirty, rotten son of a bitch. Why didn't you call me and tell me you had already picked up the kids from my mom's house, you a-hole?" I snapped, seething with anger. I had to listen to her for 10 minutes reaming me out. She was asking me why I was there, saying, "Didn't Alistair tell you he's picking up the kids? Are you two having marriage problems? Are you running around on him? Why wasn't he with you at the party?" God, she drives me nuts sometimes. I stood there, fuming, waiting for him to respond. And you could have at least called me. Tell me, shithead, why weren't you at the party? What, are we too good for you? You're just an a-hole for doing this to me. I continued to rant, my anger boiling over. If you'd looked at your phone or had it turned on, you would have seen I left a message that I was at the house and was going to pick up the kids from your parents' place, Alistair replied calmly. Bullshit. I didn't see any messages on my phone, I shot back. Did you even look? I called you 4 times to let you know I was waiting at the parking lot for you to come get me. I even texted you a few times too, he said, growing frustrated. I never saw any messages or texts on my phone. You probably had the wrong number, a-hole. Why didn't you just walk or get a ride back to the party? 2's company, but 3's a crowd, he muttered under his breath. What did you say, you a-hole? Are you insinuating I did something wrong? Screw you. You can kiss my butt. You maggot. You really think I did something wrong? Alistair looked at me coolly. If the shoe fits, wear it. I could practically feel steam pouring out of my ears. I was beyond furious. Screw you, a-hole. Don't even think about coming upstairs to my bedroom. You can sleep down here. I stomped up the stairs, my mind a whirlwind of rage. I was too pissed to even check on the kids. My thoughts were scattered, and I wasn't thinking straight. Once I got to my bedroom, I slammed the door and locked it to make sure Alistair couldn't come in. As I stood there, panting with anger, I wondered why I went off on him like that. He hadn't actually done anything wrong. Deep down, I knew it was my guilty conscience from cheating on him that fueled the outburst. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning in the dark. In the morning, I finally checked my phone. It was turned off. When I turned it back on, I had a bunch of phone messages and a few text messages from Alistair. Damn, he was right. He did call, and I sure screwed this all up. For the next 6 weeks, we avoided each other, almost like 2 cats on a hot tin roof. I was starting to get over the guilty feel, even though I am still having sex with Henry at the office. Sometimes our boss Logan Carter would join us for a threesome. It did not seem to bother me anymore that I was cheating on Alistair. I knew that my law firm would protect me. Things started to calm down in May. Alistair is back sleeping in my bed, but I still won't have any sex with him. I really don't why I am punishing him by withholding sex. I guess I am still somewhat pissed at him. There again, I don't know why I am still mad at him. Memorial weekend, my mom and dad were taking the kids up to their cabin on Higgins Lake for the long weekend. Mom told me it was time for me to reconnect with my husband. Alistair took me out for a real nice dinner Friday night. We went dancing afterwards. It felt like we were a married couple again. When we got home, I let him have sex with me. I even participated a little bit. Saturday morning, Alistair made a nice breakfast, and when we finished cleaning up the kitchen, he told me he wanted to talk with me. We went into the living room, and he explained about his company conference in Florida. I started to get excited, until he told the dates. It took place over the same weekend that my company has a dinner and dance. There is no way that I am going to miss my company's function. We ended up having a major blow-up over the dates and functions. Sometimes Alistair can be a major a-hole. He went out to cut the grass, and I left to spend money on me for the dinner dance. I got home around 5 p.m., and Alistair is sleeping on the couch. I sneaked up the stairs with my packages and hid them in my closet. The rest of the weekend, we did not speak to each other. We had another fight as he and the kids were leaving for his conference. God, he can piss me off at times. What an a-hole he can be. Well, I have the house to myself for the rest of week and weekend. This should be a very restful week. The next 3 days just flew by. I realized that I never missed the kids or Alistair. I never gave them a call, and they never called me. So we are even. Saturday finally arrived, and I spent the whole day in the beauty salon getting ready for the party. I had the works done, hair, makeup, fingernails, and toenails painted. I went home and got dressed. The party started at 6 p.m., and I arrived 20 minutes late to make an entrance. I knew that I looked fabulous. I am sitting at a table with my boss Henry and his wife, and our senior partner Logan Carter and his wife. They had a single junior lawyer as my date. A junior partner and his wife rounded out our table. I did not know that they had some bedrooms upstairs at the country club. I had a great time drinking wine and dancing. Oh yes, and I had sex with Logan twice and the 3 partners once each. I even screwed my date twice. I got home around 3 a.m. sore all over. My feet hurt from dancing so much. Thank God that Alistair is not home. I don't think I could have sex with another man. I shed my clothes and crawled into bed. I got up at noon and took a nice long bath. I cleaned the house and got the clothes all washed. I knew that the kids should be home around 5 p.m. Right on cue, they drove into the driveway. I completely ignored Alistair and hugged my 2 kids and asked them all about their vacation. I knew that pissed Alistair off, but so what, screw him. A couple of weeks after the 4th of July, Henry started talking about the lawyers' conference at the Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City. He told me, "Kathy, you are going to this conference, but not your husband. We don't bring our spouses to this conference. The 3 partners will be there, and they expect a repeat of the dinner and dance we had last month. I am excited about going to the conference." When I told Alistair about it, he just shrugged. Prick. He couldn't bring down my good mood, though. I even gave him a couple of mercy secs to keep him happy. It's finally Sunday, the day we are supposed to leave. I am packed and ready to go. We are all meeting at the office, where we will divide up into cars and head north. It was an unbelievable conference. I hardly ever left the room. There seemed to be always one of the guys there to screw me silly. For 6 days I screwed each of the 4 guys, and maybe some other guys. By the time I got home Saturday, I was whipped and screwed out. I spent Friday night with Henry, and I could not believe what he said to me. "I want to really hurt your husband," he said. "What do you want to do to him?" "I want you to have my baby." "What?" "I want you to stop taking your birth control pills, and next month stop screwing him. I am to be your only partner till you get pregnant. This way we can make him a true cuck and have him raise our child." "Oh, that sounds exciting. I will stop taking my pills right now. My period starts next week, and by the middle of September, I should be ready to conceive your child." Henry got me pregnant in September, and our plan was to have Alistair screw me silly as soon as we knew that I am pregnant. Unfortunately, Alistair did not buy into our plan, and no matter how much I tried in the next couple of months, I could never get Alistair to screw me in my fertile time of the month. "Henry, Alistair has not made love to me in 2 months. It will be hard to pin my pregnancy on him," I said. "Don't worry, baby, we will string him up to dry and force him to accept this child. I have a couple of ideas on just what to do to keep him in line," he said. In November, Henry informed me about a company cruise right after Christmas for both spouses and children. The cruise would start the 27th of December and return on January 2nd. "Kathy, you should bring your kids and husband for this cruise," he told me. "Screw Alistair. He can stay home, but I would love to take this cruise with my 2 kids," I replied. We had an odd Thanksgiving, where he went to his mother's house by himself, and I took the kids with me to my folks' house. Of course, my mother could not shut up about why Alistair was not with us for Thanksgiving dinner. We fought the whole month of December on whether the kids will go with me or not on the cruise. Finally, just before Christmas, I gave in and decided to go by myself. I am so pissed at Alistair for doing this to me. He is denying me a chance to have a vacation with the kids, just like he did last summer in Florida. December just flew by, and it was Christmas Day. Alistair and I put on an Academy Award-winning show for both the kids and our folks. We acted like the most lovey-dovey couple, fooling both folks that things were never better for us. I could not wait for the cruise to start. Finally, it is time to leave for my company cruise. I had a great time on the cruise. There was never a shortage of men for me to be entertained by. That includes the top 4 from my company. It was a refreshing cruise for me to recharge my batteries. I got home Saturday night, and the house is empty. There is a note on the table from Alistair that he and the kids would be home Monday evening. Little did I know that the dam was about to break. Monday morning at about 10 minutes before 10 a.m., I was called by Henry to come to the main conference room. When I got there, the 3 partners and Henry Miles were waiting for me. "Ethan Whitman will be here at 10 a.m. to meet with all of us." "You don't have any idea why he wants to meet with us, do you?" he asked. "I don't know who Ethan Whitman is," I replied. "He was a former partner of this firm," Henry told me. I was kind of shocked. I did not know that there was a 4th partner. I just shook my head and kept my mouth shut. There is a knock on the door, and Logan's secretary let Ethan in the conference room. "Well, Ethan, we are all here. What is it that is so important that you need to talk with all of us?" Logan Carter said. "Well, I am here representing Austin James Kelly in his divorce from Allison Joyce Kelly," Ethan said. I gave a loud gasp as the rest tried to all talk at once. My ears were buzzing. My eyes started to mist over. Everyone was talking, but it seemed like I was not hearing just what is being said. I started to feel faint. "Ethan, what is going on here? Why are we all here for a divorce case? This should be handled between you and whoever Kathy gets for an attorney," Logan said. "Well, you might be right, Logan, but you see, there is a whole lot more here at stake than just a simple divorce. I have in my custody some information that needs to be reviewed by all 5 of you. I think that a few days should be enough for you all to review this information. Let's say that we all meet back here Friday morning at 10 a.m. Ethan said as he passed out the envelopes with Alistair's demands, the PI report, pictures, and the 2 discs. Also included were the divorce papers. Ethan got up and said to Logan, "If you have any question or need me for something, You know my phone number. If I don't hear anything, I will meet you all Friday morning 10 a.m. After Ethan left the conference room, Henry walked over to me and sat down. Kathy, you don't look so good. Are you going to be all right? Henry asked me. I just nodded my head okay. He got up and walked back to his chair and sat down and started to review the information. Well, let's see just what Ethan has that he is so proud of, Logan said. While they reviewed the PI report and looked the pictures over, I started to read Alistair's demands. He wants my children. There is no way he is getting my children in a million years. He can't take my children, can he? I cried. Henry came over again and sat down next to me. Now, Kathy, calm down. Let us get through all this information, then we can start making a plan of attack, he said to me. I just nodded and sobbed onto his shoulder while he stroked my hair. He nodded at the other three to continue reading while he calmed me down. It looks like most of the information he has won't be admissible evidence in a court of law. He can file for divorce on a couple of motions, but in Michigan, it is a no-fault state, and everything will be split 50-50ths. He would have to prove that Kathy is an unfit mother to gain custody of the children, and she would also get the house. I wonder just what he is fishing for with this entire stack of paper. Let us watch these 2 discs and see just what is on them, Logan said. You guys watch it and fill me in. Let me get Kathy out of here and back into her office. It will give her a chance to catch her breath and calm down, Henry said. The other 3 nodded their heads in agreement, and Henry led me out of the conference room. A couple days later on a Thursday afternoon, we all met in the conference room to discuss the results of the study done on the information that Ethan had given all of us. I had watched the video and listened to the audio, and knew things did not sound really good for us. This is a mess, even though he can't use this information in a divorce case. If this got out, we will all be divorced, and clients will leave us, and we will be ruined. This is the purest form of a blackmail case if I ever had seen one, Logan said. For the next 3 hours, we discussed every angle of the information that Ethan had left with us. The final results were that Logan, as president of the firm, would meet with Ethan tomorrow alone to try and feel him out on just what he planned to do with the information. It is Friday morning, and Logan's secretary ushered Ethan into Logan's office. Logan, is it just you and me for this meeting? Ethan said. Let's stop the posturing, Ethan. All this evidence that you have is inadmissible in court, and you know it. Maybe so, Logan, maybe so, but I don't control this information. Alistair does. He told me that he has it all set up so the information that I gave you will be made public, including to all of your wives. That includes your client list and media outlets. Is this what you want, Logan? If that happens, then Ethan, I will sue you and Mr. Kelly. I will break both of you in half. Logan, I don't control what happens with that information. Only Mr. Kelly does, and he doesn't care. It seems that your firm broke up his marriage by making his wife the company hooker. He will release that information, and you can do whatever you want to do. But the damage will be done. Okay, Ethan, where do we go from here? Do you talk for the other 4? Yes, we all agreed that I would be lead counsel on this matter. You read his list of demands. Also, he wants this divorce rushed through the courts. That is something that we both can make happen. Once the divorce is final, the rest of this will blow over. What assurance do I have that the information will never be released? I don't have an answer for that question. I know that he is using the information as protection against retribution that you might take. So that is how I lost my children to that prick Alistair. I will never forgive him for doing this to me. I will never get a chance to watch my children grow up. I think that if I was not pregnant with Henry's baby, I would probably in all likelihood kill myself. I just hope that sometime in the future, Alistair will have a change of heart and at least let me visit my 2 children. It has been 5 years since Alistair left and took my 2 kids with him. I have forgiven him for doing this to me, but I sure would love to see my 2 children again. It is May, and Alice's birthday is next month. I stopped at my folks' house to talk with Mom. I wanted to plan a nice party for Alice. Mom, next month is Alice's birthday, and I would like to plan a nice party here so the kids can use your pool. What do you think? I asked. She has this big shit-eating grin on her face. This is so unlike my mother not to voice her opinion. It is almost like she is dangling me on a fish hook. I have a better idea. How about we take you and Alice on a trip with us to see your children in Switzerland? She said. I'm stunned. I think my mouth moved, but no words seemed to come out of my mouth. Oh, Kathy, close your mouth before you catch some flies in it. Alistair invited you and Alice to join us in our next trip to see our grandchildren. I think this would be a great birthday gift to Alice to see her stepbrother and sister. What do you think? Do you want us to get tickets for the 2 of you to join us on our trip in June? Of course, I said yes, and in June we left for Switzerland. It was a great trip. Alistair and Maria were very nice to me. I could see that they are very much in love with each other. I could see just what I gave up, and it just crushed me. I made some horrible mistakes, and it cost me dearly. Someday I hope to have what they have in each other. It was great to see my 2 kids, and we had a very good time together. Man, how the time just flew. Before I knew it, it was time to leave. Alistair and Maria were great host and hostess, and they invited us back for Christmas in Switzerland. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Kathy's lawyer stood up, his voice measured and practiced. Your Honor, my client wishes to request a counseling session in an effort to repair the marriage. She believes that with the right support, this relationship can be mended. My lawyer stood immediately, his voice confident and unwavering. Your Honor, Mr. Porter has made it clear that he does not wish to reconcile. The facts of this case speak for themselves. Mrs. Porter has engaged in multiple extramarital affairs and is currently pregnant with a child fathered by one of these individuals. My client's intention is to move forward with the divorce. There was a murmur in the courtroom, whispers that seemed to echo my own disbelief at how this had unfolded. I clenched my hands together, keeping my expression neutral. I needed to stay strong. Kathy's lawyer pushed on, though there was a hint of desperation in his tone now. While my client acknowledges past mistakes, she believes that a counseling session could bring closure and understanding to both parties, possibly healing some of the damage. I felt a surge of frustration. I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady but firm. Your Honor, I appreciate the court's time, but I have no interest in counseling. Too much has happened, and this marriage is beyond saving. I just want the divorce. Kathy's lawyer glanced at his notes before addressing the judge again. Your Honor, beyond the marriage itself, there is also the welfare of the unborn child to consider. My client believes that counseling is essential for ensuring that all parties, especially the child, have a chance at stability and support. My lawyer shifted slightly but stayed silent, waiting for my cue. I couldn't keep my frustration contained any longer. I stood, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I have no interest in raising that devil spawn that isn't mine. That cheating 304 can find her father and let him raise it. I don't want to attend any counseling with that woman. Mr. Porter, one more word and I will hold you in contempt of court, he yelled at me. A quiet gasp moved through the room, and I caught a glimpse of Kathy's face, pale and tight-lipped. The judge's eyes narrowed as he looked at me over the rim of his glasses, a long pause filling the space as if he were weighing every word. Mr. Porter, the judge said, his voice firm, while I understand your feelings, this court must consider all factors, including the emotional welfare of everyone involved. I am ordering both parties to attend counseling sessions as a final attempt to address these issues constructively. I will not attend, I scowled. I am ordering 1 month of counseling 2 sessions per week. You will attend, Mr. Porter, or else. He glowered at me for a moment, then banged his gavel again, that is all. A week later, the room was silent, tense, with an air that seemed to buzz with unspoken words. The counselor, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor and glasses perched on the edge of his nose, sat across from us, hands resting lightly on a notepad. Kathy sat next to me, looking down, twisting the fabric of her sweater nervously. Ben, Kathy started, her voice shaky. I just want to say. Don't, I snapped, my voice cold and sharp. Keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear anything from you. The counselor, Mr. Hensley, glanced between us, his expression neutral but attentive. Ben, I know this is tough, but we're here to try to open a dialogue. Even if it's uncomfortable, speaking up can help us move forward. Will you give it a try? I crossed my arms, my jaw tightening. I'm here because the judge ordered it, not because I want to talk. I'll attend, but I don't have to participate. A brief silence followed, Mr. Hensley's eyes searching mine for any sign of willingness. When none came, he sighed, shifting his notepad slightly. I understand this is painful, but communication is a step toward understanding, even if it doesn't lead to reconciliation. After an hour, okay doctor, good session. See you Thursday? I'm canceling the sessions and sending my report to the judge. Even better. I left the office. The judge was not pleased. Give me one reason why I should not hold your client in contempt, he growled at my lawyer. Your Honor, you ordered my client to attend the sessions. He attended the first session in accordance with the order. It was the counselor who called off the rest of the session. The counselor's report clearly states that he made no attempt to engage in the session. He put in headphones and ignored them for the entire time. The judge responded. The order was that he attend, my lawyer returned. He attended. Given that the counselor felt that there was no benefit in continuing, I would like to request that you grant the divorce according to the petition, not on your life. The judge said, I am ordering 4 weeks of counseling. Mr. Porter will attend, and he will participate. The office was set up in exactly the same format as before when I arrived. 2 chairs about a foot apart faced the doctor's desk. He sat behind it. The desk was bare, barring a yellow legal pad and a picture of a pretty woman, I would guess in her mid-30s, and a child that looked about 6 years old. Mr. Porter, the doctor said, please, take a seat. Once again, I started to move the chair. Kathy put her hand out to stop me and I jumped back. If you dare to touch me, I would consider it an assault and would punch your teeth in your stomach. You understand, bitch? Kathy gasped, pulling back. I went back to moving the chair and then sat in it. Once again, I got out my phone. Mr. Porter, the judge ordered that you participate in the session. I know, I said, my voice steady. I'm using my phone to record the session to prove my participation. My lawyer mentioned that some counselors might have their own agendas. Since my soon-to-be ex-wife has already been seeing you for some time, I feel you may have developed a relationship with her that could work against me. The counselor, Mr. Hensley, tilted his head slightly. And what if I do not wish you to record the sessions? He asked, his tone calm but direct. Then I'll go back to court and request a different counselor. I replied firmly. I have that option. The only reason I didn't do that already was to avoid more delays. I just want to quickly get rid of this 304. Mr. Hensley turned his attention to Kathy, who was sitting with her arms crossed, eyes averted. Kathy, how do you feel about the sessions being recorded? She shrugged, barely looking up. Whatever, she said with a hint of impatience, waving her hand dismissively. Can we just start? The air in the room seemed to settle, a reluctant agreement hanging between us all. Okay then, Mr. Hensley said, folding his hands in front of him. What I would like to do to start. Before we start, I interrupted, my tone cold. Can I ask a question? Of course, he said, his voice measured. You can ask questions at any time. I may ask you to hold off during certain points, but right now, go ahead. He offered a small smile that I didn't return. Have you slept with her yet? I asked bluntly. Kathy gasped, a sharp intake of breath that cut through the room, but Mr. Hensley's expression didn't change. No, Ben, he said evenly, Kathy and I have not had, nor will we have, any kind of sexual contact. It would be highly inappropriate, even if I were not already very happily married. Does that answer your question? I looked at him for a long moment before nodding. I believed him, despite the fact that Kathy seemed to have been involved with nearly every man she'd encountered in the past year. All right then, Mr. Hensley continued smoothly. As I was saying, to begin, I'd like to set our expectations. Since I have already spoken to Kathy on a few occasions, I would like her to outline what she hopes to achieve in these sessions and what her desired outcome would be. Ben, I'd ask that while she's talking, you refrain from comments or questions until the end. Once Kathy has shared her goals, I'll ask you to do the same. My goal is to see her get an incurable STD and watch her die a slow and painful death, to go to her grave and piss on it. That is the ultimate dream that I have. Mr. Hensley shook his head and looked towards Kathy, who was already shaken by my response. Talk to me, Kathy, Mr. Hensley said, his tone gentle. Tell me what you would like Ben to hear. Kathy took a shaky breath, her voice wavering as she began. I want him to hear how sorry I am for hurting him. I know what I did was wrong, but it was just that he spent so much time at work and on his business trips, and I was lonely. I realize how much pain I caused him, and if I could go back and change the past, I would do anything to make it right. I love him more than anything else in the world. I know we can get past this if he'd just give me a chance. I would show him that I can be the best wife a man could ever want. We could raise this child together, give him a wonderful life, maybe even a sibling. I want us to be a family again. I know we can make it through this. Mr. Hensley offered a small nod and a faint, supportive smile. Thank you, Kathy. Now, Ben, what would you like to say? She can write down her feelings on a piece of paper, then roll it in and stick it up her butt, far enough to choke on it. Feelings mean crap to me, and she is already dead to me. Kathy started to cry and ran out of the room. Please collide with something and die, I said as she ran out. That was not helpful, Mr. Hensley remarked, his voice steady but edged with concern. I don't want to be helpful, I spat back. That lying, cheating woman slept with half the city for a year, got herself pregnant, and then tried to pass the baby off as mine. If I hadn't already been suspicious and demanded a DNA test, I'd be stuck right now paying for someone else's kid. Tell me, doctor, how exactly should I be acting? It's natural to be angry, Ben. Mr. Hensley replied evenly. But you need to look past the anger to remember what you shared. I glared at him, my rage simmering. Do you even know what the hell you're talking about? I snapped. Have you ever had the love of your life? The person you trusted with every piece of yourself, who you die to protect, betray you so completely that you question your own sanity? How can someone who says they love you hurt you so deeply that it pushes you to the brink of wanting to end it all? And did you notice she hasn't even once truly apologized for what she did? Not for screwing all those men. Not for the endless lies. Not for getting herself pregnant, and not even knowing who the father is. The only thing certain is that it wasn't the person who should have been giving her a child. Me. So don't sit there with your sanctimonious, and your book knowledge, telling me I need to move past my anger. Right now, my anger is the only thing keeping me going. Just let me get this cheating 304 out of my life, so I can try to rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. I stood up, eyes locked on Mr. Hensley. Does that count as participation? I snarled as I turned and walked out. I asked Kathy to allow us to have this session without her. Mr. Hensley said as I walked into his office the following week. I think we may be able to achieve more on a one-on-one basis to start. As long as this still counts towards the court-ordered counseling, I'm more than happy to be in the same room as that bitch, I replied, plopping down in a chair and setting an A4 envelope on my lap. Can we try to refrain from name-calling, please? It's not constructive and only gets in the way, he said, his tone calm. I'm not here to be constructive. I just want to get through these sessions and finally get that unfaithful person out of my life for good. I never wanted to be here. She's just hell-bent on causing me as much pain as possible. She doesn't want the divorce because the prenup leaves her with nothing, so she's trying to force me into taking her back. It's not happening. And what about the child? Mr. Hensley pressed. He's innocent. Surely, he shouldn't be punished for. I don't give a shit about that kid. By your logic, I should take in every stray that couldn't keep her legs closed and ended up pregnant. Those kids have nothing to do with me, and neither does this one. Why are you so set on believing there's only one outcome here? He asked, his voice steady. You clearly loved her deeply. That kind of feeling doesn't just vanish overnight. Your anger is masking it right now, but once it settles, and trust me, it will, you'll find there are still feelings you can build on. Feelings that could help restore your relationship, maybe even make it stronger. That stupid smile was back again, and I felt the urge to punch him. Time to give him a taste of his own medicine. I gestured toward the picture on his desk. You have a nice family, I said. Been married long? We're not here to discuss my personal life. 11 years, if my sources are correct. Childhood sweetheart, married right out of college. Waited to have kids, and then little Ethan came along. What is he, 9 now? That picture must have been taken a couple of years ago. How did you? He started to ask. But did you know your darling Cheryl has her own secrets? I continued. Did you know that when she says she's at Pilates class on Wednesdays while you're working, she's actually at the Motel 8 on Patterson, screwing her personal trainer? That is completely ridiculous, he stammered, but I could see he was shaken. He had gone very pale. Really? I said, pulling several photographs from the envelope and slapping them down on his desk one by one. They showed a pretty slender woman entering a hotel room with a young muscle-bound man, his arm wrapped around her waist as they gazed lovingly at each other. I then pulled out a DVD and slapped it down too. There's footage from inside the room if you want actual proof of what they were getting up to. It's pretty graphic, so I wouldn't watch it if I were you. I made that mistake when I got my PI report. Those images will haunt me for the rest of my life. He looked like he might be sick. Oh, and one more thing, I added, pulling out a DNA report from the envelope. No, he said quietly. Please God, no. It appears that the fitness instructor isn't the first. I guess he would be too young to have fathered Ethan, but whoever the father is, it isn't you, I said quietly. He stood up and bolted for what I assumed was a bathroom off his office. I could hear him retching violently. Now do you understand? I asked when he finally sank back into his chair, tears streaming down his face. He looked at me with dead eyes. Do you see the pain she caused me and why I need to get her out of my life? I pressed. He nodded, looking utterly defeated. Good, I said, smirking a little. Now there's just one more thing you need to know. His face drained of color as he looked at me with dread. There's more? He asked, sounding pitiful. It's all fake. I shot back. None of what I just showed you is true. As far as I know, your wife is as loving and faithful as you thought she was, and Ethan is your son. But the photos, he stammered. Photoshop, I replied grimly. Amazing what you can do with some Facebook posts and a little time and effort. If you had them examined by anyone with half a brain, they'd tell you they're all fakes. I pulled out the originals I'd created them from. The DVD? He asked, his voice trembling. Blank. I replied flatly. And the DNA report? Is actually the DNA report for that cheating 304's baby. I just changed the names and dates, I said, watching his expression shift from confusion to disbelief. He sat there, stunned, fresh tears beginning to stream down his face. Why would you do that? What did you think you could possibly achieve by wrecking my marriage and my life? He asked, his voice cracking. That was not my intention, I shot back. That's why I told you right away it was all fake. I never wanted you or your family to suffer permanent harm. I just wanted you, for once, to truly understand the pain I went through. The feelings of loss, anger, and hurt. You had a taste of it for a few minutes. I'm still living with it. Your brief misery is my daily reality now. Forcing me to sit here with that bitch, listening to her spout her shit about how she loves me and wants me back, just means I have to relive the pain over and over again. There are laws against cruel and unusual punishment. Why don't they apply here? I just want to move on, pick up the pieces of my life, and get on with it. Why can't you and the courts let me do that? I started gathering the documents from the table and shoved them back into the envelope. I'll leave this with you to dispose of, I said, my tone softening just a fraction. I am actually sorry to have had to do this, but I needed you to understand. Your Honor, I have the report from the court-mandated counseling that my client was instructed to attend, my lawyer said, addressing the judge with a mixture of formality and urgency. I have a copy, the judge growled, his eyes narrowing as he flipped through the pages. It appears that the counselor believes, even after only 3 sessions out of the mandated 8, that this marriage is beyond saving. For the well-being of all involved, including the child, the best course would be to allow its dissolution. Yes, Your Honor. I would request that you order the divorce be completed as per the petition, my lawyer pressed. The judge stared at me for a long moment. I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead, refusing to meet his eyes, not wanting to reveal the turmoil inside. So ordered, he said finally, banging his gavel with a finality that echoed in the courtroom. The judge glanced at the financial records before him and delivered his ruling with a tone that made it clear this was not a matter to be taken lightly. There will be no alimony, he stated, looking up at us. Ms. Kathy earns more than Mr. Porter, and both parties will retain their pre-marriage assets. The remainder will be divided 50-50. No alimony meant that I wouldn't be financially tethered to Kathy any longer. Kathy had lost her job, a fact that didn't surprise me in the least. One of her lovers had turned out to be a client, and I could only imagine the mess that would have ensued from that. I couldn't help but smirk internally at the irony of her situation. Then, as if it couldn't get any more ridiculous, I heard that she had filed a suit against 7 men, requesting the court to mandate DNA tests. I couldn't believe it. Here she was, dragging multiple men into the fray, all in an effort to sort out who the father of her child might be. The aftermath of the paternity test had set off a chain reaction that I couldn't have predicted. News spread like wildfire. All 7 wives of the men Kathy had been sleeping with filed for divorce against their husbands. I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction at the chaos she'd unleashed on everyone involved. It was like a karmic whirlwind, and I was just a bystander, watching the fallout. Last I heard, one of those angry wives had stormed into the courthouse and attacked Kathy. The image of her breaking Kathy's nose was almost poetic in a way. After everything Kathy had done, seeing her face bloodied and bruised felt like some kind of cosmic justice. I had to admit, I almost laughed when I heard about it. It was hard to feel any sympathy for her at that point. She had turned my life upside down, and now she was reaping what she had sown. Kathy had given birth to her child, but that didn't change how I felt about her or the situation. The cases against those 7 men were still lingering in the courts, and I wondered how long it would take for all that to finally be resolved. Honestly, I was just glad to be out of the mess. Kathy showed up at my house unannounced one afternoon, her face set with a mixture of desperation and entitlement. I could tell from the moment she walked through the door that she was on a mission to convince me to marry her again. She started spouting all this nonsense about how she had changed, how she realized what a mistake she had made, and how much she loved me. It was almost laughable considering everything that had happened. I stood my ground, refusing to let her manipulate me again. Kathy, it's over. We're done. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them, I told her firmly, trying to keep my cool. But she wouldn't let it go. She was relentless, her voice rising with every word. trying to make me feel guilty for not considering a reconciliation. Just then, Nancy, my girlfriend, came out from the kitchen. She must have sensed the tension in the room because she didn't hesitate to confront Kathy. "You need to leave. You're not welcome here," she said, her tone sharp and unyielding. Kathy's response was explosive. She launched into an abusive tirade, spewing venomous insults and trying to demean Nancy, clearly believing she still had the power to intimidate. I could see Nancy's eyes narrow as Kathy continued her verbal assault. I felt a surge of protectiveness for Nancy, but I knew Kathy was unhinged, and I didn't want to escalate the situation. Then it happened. In a moment of rage, Kathy lunged at Nancy, trying to hit her. That was a huge mistake. Nancy, who was no stranger to standing her ground, expertly sidestepped Kathy's wild swing and retaliated with a brutal counterattack. She kicked her and threw her on the floor. I stood there, half in shock and half in admiration, as Nancy quickly gained the upper hand. She was fierce, and Kathy, who had always relied on her manipulative tactics, was clearly outmatched. Before I knew it, Nancy had Kathy pinned against the floor, her anger palpable. It was surreal, watching Kathy, the woman who had once held so much control over my life, reduced to this. I could hardly believe what I was witnessing. "Get the hell out of our lives, Kathy. You're not welcome here," Nancy shouted. In the midst of the chaos, I pulled out my phone and called the cops. Kathy was screaming by this point, but her words fell on deaf ears. The cops arrived shortly after, and Nancy calmly explained everything. They stepped in, quickly assessing the situation. Kathy, still defiant, tried to put on a show, claiming she was the victim, but it didn't take long for the officers to see through her act. As they handcuffed her and led her away, I felt an odd mix of emotions: relief, satisfaction, and a sense of finality. It was the end of an era for me, the last remnants of her toxicity being dragged out of my life. I turned to Nancy, who was still shaking with adrenaline. "You were incredible," I said, feeling grateful to have her by my side. "Just doing what had to be done," she replied with a hint of a smile. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. I was ready to leave the past behind and embrace a future with someone who truly valued me, someone who wouldn't try to tear me down. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
My name is Ben Harris. I'm a 42-year-old manager at a construction firm in Los Angeles. I met my wife, Kathy, 12 years ago when she was 21, working as a file clerk just outside my office. What caught my attention first were the tight jeans she wore that hugged her hips perfectly. She was young, attractive, and left quite an impression. At the time, I had been divorced from my first wife for about 4 years and had no children. I always wanted kids, though, and with Kathy working nearby and handling the project files, it felt like things just fell into place. We started having lunch together, and after a few weeks, I invited her to spend the weekend with me. It was a great weekend. Good company, good chemistry, and we started dating seriously after that. A couple of months passed before Kathy told me she was pregnant. I was excited but also direct. I asked her if she wanted an abortion or if she wanted to get married. She didn't want an abortion, so the next weekend, we had a small, private wedding. I was thrilled. At 30, I felt ready to start a family, to be a dad, and I wanted to be young enough to enjoy every part of my kids' lives. But something shifted in Kathy after that. She became quiet, withdrawn, and pregnancy was not something she enjoyed. At the time, I thought maybe it was just the strain of carrying a child, but I later realized it was more than that. Kathy had married me not because she wanted to build a family, but to escape her mother's house. She had no real interest in having children, and had even aborted 2 pregnancies from a previous relationship. That was something I didn't learn until much later. About 3 months before the birth of our first son, Kathy quit her job to become a full-time homemaker and prepare for motherhood. Our second and third sons arrived shortly after, and within 3.5 years, we had 3 healthy, energetic boys. With 3 young kids to look after, Kathy was constantly busy and often exhausted by the time I got home from work. I truly appreciated her dedication as a mom, but as her energy for parenting increased, her desire for intimacy seemed to fade. The gradual decline in our physical relationship left me feeling a bit on edge. I noticed that Kathy's attitude began to change when she turned 30. The kids were now all in grade school, and I had assumed Kathy would be able to relax a bit more and pay more attention to me. Unfortunately, our sex life continued to remain at a low ebb. I never really knew what Kathy was doing during the day with the kids in school. I looked back at what my mom used to do: cleaning the house, doing the laundry, shopping for food and the kids' clothes, taking the kids to soccer practice. I assumed Kathy's day would be pretty much the same as what I had seen my mom do. One day, Kathy approached me after dinner and told me she would like to find a part-time job. She said she was getting bored staying at home by herself during the day. I was a little concerned because I didn't see how she could make lunches, get the kids off to school, clean house, do the laundry, take the kids to soccer practice, go shopping, and still find the time for a job. I was worried that her health may suffer from plain exhaustion. Kathy spent a few weeks looking, and then by word of mouth found a part-time job as a bookkeeper for a small local gym. She told me that she would be given a free membership and would only work from 8 a.m. until noon. This would allow her to get the kids off to school and come home after work to do the necessary chores before the kids got home. She told me that if there was ever an emergency at school, the school could reach her at work, and she would only be 10 minutes away. Kathy's appeared to have thought this out carefully, and I could find no flaw in her logic. So I told her, go for it. Kathy started work and seemed to get an emotional lift from having to interface with adults at work. Things seemed to settle into a well-established routine, and Kathy's demeanor substantially improved. A few months after she started work, Kathy approached me with a request to take advantage of the gym's free membership. She wanted to go to the gym early in the morning from 4:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. to exercise, then come back home to get the kids off to school, and then head off to work at 8 a.m. Because of my commute, I had to leave the house at 6:30 a.m., so I really didn't see any conflict with the family's overall schedule. A few months went by and I began to notice Kathy getting her old figure back. She had dropped 20 pounds and was now carrying 120 pounds on her 5 feet minus 4 inches frame. When I complimented her on her efforts, she surprised me by telling me she felt her boobs were too small. She told me she wanted breast enhancements to make her boobs perky again. I realized after having 3 kids, she deserved the implants, especially if it would improve our stale sex life. Kathy got her implants, and it took her a couple of weeks to fully recover. Apparently, the surgeon inserted the implants through her armpits to make them look and feel more realistic. He did a very good job, and she was ecstatic with the results. Kathy again returned to her part-time job and early morning workouts. Things got back into the groove of everyday family life. But that was soon to change dramatically. It was early Saturday morning and I was cleaning out Kathy's car. As I took out the floor mat on the driver's side, I noticed a small cellophane bag underneath the car seat. I pulled out the small bag and noticed it was partially filled with white powder. I had no idea what was in the bag, but the possibility that the bag contained drugs crossed my mind. I began to get an uneasy feeling. Where would Kathy get drugs? Could the drugs belong to a friend? What in the hell was going on? What was Kathy doing during the day? I decided not to tell Kathy what I had found. I needed time to think things out and talk to an old friend who lived life walking on the fence. If the substance in the bag was a drug, my bud Timothy would know. That afternoon, I asked Kathy if she could take the kids to their soccer games because I needed to get an oil change for my car. I told her I would be back in a couple hours. I left the house and headed across town to Timothy's apartment. Just as I was about to knock on Timothy's door, the door opened and Timothy bent down to grab his newspaper. It had been a couple of years and Timothy was surprised to see me. I told him the kids, family life, and weekend soccer games was keeping me busy and chasing skirts with my old single buds was probably not practical. When he laughed, I told him I needed a favor. He told me, that's what friends are for. I entered his apartment and I showed him what I had found under Kathy's car seat. He opened the bag, wet his index finger, and tapped the white substance. He brought out a small amount on his fingertip, looked at it, and touched it to his tongue. Timothy casually said, "Meth?" I stood there stunned. What was Kathy doing with meth? And who had given it to her? I must have looked bewildered, for Timothy told me to sit down. Timothy saw the look in my face and asked me about Kathy. I told him she was working part-time as a bookkeeper at a local gym. He laughed and said, gyms were a haven for drugs. Steroids, meth, and cocaine were the usual suspects, and the most trainers wind up banging their housewife clients. It is very common. But he mentioned this may just be the tip of the iceberg of Kathy's shenanigans. I started to get a sinking feeling in my stomach. I think Timothy saw the blood drain from my face. Timothy looked at me and said, "You need to hire a PI. They will be discreet and are professionals. If you follow her and find her having sex with some guy, what are you going to do? Punch the guy out and get arrested for battery. And you may even lose the fight and give him a get-out-of-jail-free card to beat the hell out of you claiming self-defense? Punch her out and get arrested for felony spousal abuse? You're the one who would go to jail, and you're the one who would suffer as Big Bubas's bitch. All you would do is leave the door wide open for Kathy to continue her affair, and she would probably have the guy move into your home while you were in jail. When you got out, you would have nothing. California is a no-fault state, so her adultery would be ignored. But it gets worse. If you could not support her and your kids because you were incarcerated, the courts would take your 401k and retirement funds to use for spousal and child support. And remember, there is nothing to stop you wife from using those funds to support her lover. You would have effectively thrown away your life up to this point. When you are finally released from prison, you would carry the stigma of being an ex-con to every potential employer you contact. Unless you can start your own business, which is highly unlikely, you will be forced to take a job, if you can even find one, at a fraction of the pay of your current position. Timothy went on, "We have been friends for a long time, so I want you to hire a PI, and I want you to bring me all the information he finds. If she is taking drugs, you need to get her into a rehab facility for the sake of your children and the stability of their home. However, if she has committed adultery and you have done nothing to encourage that particular behavior, then she has lost respect for you and has disregarded the welfare of her children. If that is the case, you will never gain back her respect, and you need to take the kind of action that will allow you to walk away from this situation with your pride and your balls intact. No woman is ever sorry she cheated on her husband. She is only sorry that she got caught. A woman who is unfaithful fully intended her actions. She knew exactly what she is doing. It is a selfish act that totally disregards the feelings of her husband and family. And remember, the next time for her gets easier and easier. However, if she was drugged, then she was not cheating, but she was involuntarily assaulted." Timothy continued, "Women are different than men. From their late 20s to their late 30s, women's hormones are running wild. They are at the same runaway hormone level as an 18-year-old guy. Any woman who has been married for a few years and hits that cycle is looking for a new sex partner. Whether they successfully find it is another question. With the divorce rate in the Los Angeles basin at 65%, with 85% instigated by the wife, for first marriages and 80% for second marriages, and with an overall female infidelity rate of 50%, equates to a lot of wives screwing on their first and second husbands with no remorse. It appears that few women learn their lesson, but most continue their infidelity in subsequent marriages. Remember, not only does it get easier and easier, but the grass is always greener on the other side of the hill until you have to mow the lawn. Well, Ben, that is why I stayed single. I just saw too much in my line of work as a PI. With the divorce laws the way they are, men, in general, are fighting an uphill battle. And remember, Ben, it is a war to get the upper hand. Men don't marry partners. They marry adversaries and spend the rest of their lives suffering in silence. I left Timothy's apartment that afternoon shaken to the core. I took the business card of the PI Timothy handed me. I would call the PI Monday. I wasn't going to be emotional and mentally abused by anyone's runaway hormones. 2 weeks later, I stared in disbelief at the PI's report. Apparently, Kathy was meeting a trainer from the gym during her early morning workout. They had a routine worked out where they met at 4:30 a.m., spent a half hour screwing in the back of her car, and then went in for a workout when the gym opened at 5 a.m. It had never occurred to me to check what time the gym opened. I felt like an idiot. I had trusted her, and she had deceived me and the kids. I was not sad, nor was I heartbroken. I was experiencing ice-cold rage. The trainer turned out to be a small-time drug dealer who dealt in steroids and meth. I called Timothy and told him I would be stopping by with the PI's report. The drive through crosstown traffic was miserable. 45 minutes later, I was ringing Timothy's door. Timothy opened the door, invited me in, and motioned me to sit down. Timothy slowly digested the PI's report and gently handed it back to me. He told me to listen very carefully. "First," Timothy said, "you must not do anything that will make her suspicious. It is imperative that she does not suspect you know anything. This coming Monday, I want you to. I work early Monday around 4:15 a.m. Kathy was just getting out of the shower and went over to put on her gym shorts and top. I wondered if she was even wearing panties. Probably not. I lay in our bed pretending to be asleep. Once she went downstairs, I quietly got out of bed, slipped into my clothes and waited until I heard the garage door open. I heard the garage door close and I quickly went downstairs, put on my gloves, grabbed my camera with a telephoto lens, and went into the garage. I opened the truck to my car and pulled out Kathy's original plastic bag and 2 additional plastic bags of meth that Timothy had given me on my last visit. I took the bags and my camera, laid them on the passenger seat of my car, opened the garage and headed down the road towards Kathy's gym. As I approached the gym, I killed my lights and parked about 50 yards away from the gym's parking lot. I picked up my camera, the 3 bags of plastic, and exited the car. As I approached the parking lot under the cover of the bushes, I noticed Kathy's car parked a slot away from an older Ford Bronco. I couldn't see anyone in the Bronco, but I did notice some movement in the backseat of Kathy's car. I crept up to the Bronco and slowly opened the driver's door and tossed 2 of the plastic bags into the passenger's seat. I then kept low and snuck around the front of the Bronco and tossed the last plastic bag on the ground by the back seat of Kathy's car. I looked up and I could see Kathy's head by the far window. She getting pounded doggy style by a male I had never met. I assumed it was her trainer. I crept back out of the parking lot and went around the corner. I pulled out the untraceable cell phone I had purchased with 30 minutes of time and dialed 911. I gave the operator a fake name, the address of the gym, and told her that I was witnessing a rape and child abduction in progress. I told her the male suspect may be armed. I ran across the street and hid in the bushes poised with my camera and telephoto lens. In less than 3.5 minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up without their sirens and with their headlights off. Simultaneously, they drove into the parking lot and turned on their headlights on the 2 cars. The cops opened their squad car doors and stood behind them with their guns drawn. I could hear the cops through the bullhorn telling the occupants of the car to exit the vehicle now with their hands on top of their head. An unknown male emerged first wearing only his boxer shorts. Kathy, still topless, came out next wearing her gym shorts. Both occupants were told to turn around and place their hands against the car. 2 cops, under the cover of the other 2 cops, approached Kathy and her friend, grabbed their hands one at a time, and handcuffed their hands behind their back. I saw one cop bend down and pick up a plastic bag. He then showed it to the other cop and motioned for the other 2 backup cops to come over. 2 of the cops went over to the Bronco and opened both front doors. One cop came back holding 2 additional plastic bags. The cops conversed for a couple of minutes, ran a check on the license plates of the 2 cars, and checked the driver licenses they had found in Kathy's car and the Bronco. Although I didn't have much light, I was snapping pictures as fast as I could. I then saw the cops take Kathy and put her in the back seat of one squad car, and her friend went into the back seat of the other squad car. Then the squad cars drove away. I headed back to my car and drove home. When I got home, the kids were still asleep. 6 o'clock came around, so I woke the kids up to get them ready for school. At 7:30 a.m., I drove the kids to school. I thought to myself that I was doing a pretty good job as Mr. Mom. I drove home and called my boss to let him know I would not be coming in that day. About 11 a.m., I got a collect call from a sobbing Kathy telling me she needed to be bailed out of jail. She and her trainer had been arrested at the gym for possession of an illegal substance. I said I would find out what her bail was and see what I could do. She was crying as she hung up. I called my attorney and told him I wanted to file for divorce that week and to request supervised visits for Kathy. I also wanted him to obtain a restraining order against Kathy to stay away from the kids and not come within 100 yards of my home. Finally, I let out a sigh of relief. I walked over to my liquor cabinet, took out my bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, and poured about half my glass. I went into the living room and, as I looked at her smiling photo, I quietly said, "You filthy 304, you can rot in jail. You will never come back to my home." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
My name is Luke Turner. I'm 40 years old and was married for 9 years when the events that changed my life unfolded. I've always been a passionate tinkerer, someone who loves to take things apart and create something new. Over time, my hobby turned into something more, as people began showing interest in the gadgets and devices I designed. This eventually led me to secure several patents for my inventions. Not long ago, I decided to sell my patents, which brought in a significant payment. However, due to the unsettled state of my life at the time, I chose to place the money into a trust fund. I knew I needed to sort things out and regain clarity before deciding what to do with it. At 22 years old, I had just completed 3 years of service in the Army, where I worked as a medical equipment repair technician. My time in the military taught me that I had a real passion for working with machinery and technology. After returning to civilian life, I landed a day job repairing bakery equipment at a large wholesale bakery, which allowed me to continue honing my skills. In the evenings, I was attending college, working toward completing my degree in electrical engineering. My social life was a mix of reconnecting with women I had known during high school and meeting new people after my discharge. I dated on and off, navigating the world of relationships while juggling work and school. Life was busy, but I felt optimistic about building a future in both my career and personal life. It was a typical Friday night, and I found myself at a local lounge nursing a beer while people watching. The crowd buzzed with energy, and as I scanned the room, my eyes landed on a familiar face. Nora Hayes, a colleague from work. She was seated in a booth designed for 4, chatting with 2 other women. The bar area was crowded, with people standing and waiting for seats to open up. Not wanting to linger awkwardly, I decided to approach Nora's booth. I greeted her with a friendly smile and asked if I could join them. Nora glanced at her companions, and after a brief exchange, they nodded in agreement. I slid into the booth and introduced myself to the group. Nora kindly took the lead, introducing her two friends, Emma Foster and Sophia Bennett. From the moment Emma spoke, I found her engaging and genuinely interesting. Her presence left a strong impression on me. Sophia, on the other hand, gave me a different vibe. It wasn't that I disliked Sophia. There was nothing outwardly unpleasant about her. She wasn't rude or unfriendly, and she certainly didn't say anything offensive. However, something about her demeanor just didn't sit well with me. There was an intangible disconnect, a sense that we simply didn't click. It wasn't personal, just a matter of chemistry, or the lack thereof. Emma shifted over, making room for me to slide into the booth beside her. Across the table, Nora and I dove into a lively exchange, catching up on the parts of our lives that didn't revolve around work. Meanwhile, I made an effort to engage Sophia in the conversation, but no matter how I tried, it felt like we were speaking entirely different languages. Emma, seated next to me, observed the dynamic with quiet attentiveness. As my attempts to draw Sophia out fell flat, Emma suddenly stood up, announcing that she needed to use the restroom. Without hesitation, I shifted to let her out, and in typical fashion when more than one woman heads to the restroom, a full-blown committee meeting ensued. Before I knew it, I was left alone in the booth, their handbags casually entrusted to my care. After what felt like an eternity, the women returned from their conference. Nora came back first, gathering both her bag and Sophia's. She gave us a quick update, leaning in slightly. "Sophia's not feeling well," she explained, her voice apologetic. "I'm going to take her home." With that, she ushered Sophia out, leaving Emma and me to process the sudden change in plans. That left me with Emma and a very awkward few moments. I asked Emma if she wanted to leave or for me to leave. She said no. She then thanked me for trying to talk to Sophia. It seems that Sophia caught her fiancé sleeping with an old girlfriend and was at least temporarily mad at all men. We ended talking the rest of the evening as if there was no one else in the place. After a couple of hours of beer and pizza, I talked Emma out of her phone number and promised to call her. As we were leaving, I offered her a ride and was turned down. She had her own car there. She had not ridden with Nora. I called Emma the next day, and we set up a date for the next weekend. We went to a play at one of the local theater group venues. Emma had never seen a live play before and was an instant fan. After the play, we went for a late dinner. Dinner was great, and it led to more dates. After a couple of weeks, we dated exclusively until I got my degree. I found a job with a local electrical contracting company as an assistant engineer. I then asked her to marry me. She said yes. 18 months later, we were married. Sophia was the maid of honor and Nora was the bridesmaid. It was a wonderful wedding, and the reception was a lot of fun. As I said before, I had been a tinkerer since my high school days, and I had several bakery and commercial restaurant equipment patents that the industry liked. I created a company to handle all of that while I was working as a construction electrical engineer. I had set it up so that all that money was placed in a company account, so I had something that was just mine. Through the company, I managed to secretly purchase the house we were renting. Things were going great for about 2 years. I was promoted to lead engineer on a major construction project. Emma had found a new job at an office in the local neighborhood. She thought that as we were now financially stable, it was time to start a family. We tried everything we could to get her pregnant. Nothing worked. After 3 years, we finally went to a specialist and found out that probably because of an injury I had in the service, my sperm count was extremely low, and what sperm I was producing was not motile. Emma went into a funk, and our sex life was turned off like a light switch had been flipped. I put up with it for 6 months or so, and finally had enough. I sat down with Emma and said to her, "Emma, I am moving out. You obviously do not want any intimacy with me anymore. It is not my fault that I am infertile. If kids are more important to you than our life together, then maybe we should divorce." Emma started sobbing. "I don't want a divorce. I don't want you to leave. I am just so disappointed that we won't have kids that I forgot the fact that you are my life mate. Please don't go. I will try to be better." "That won't work. Your trying to be better is as much a problem as we have now. I don't want you to try. I want you to want to be better. I won't be far, and if you need me to do something for you, you can call me. I would suggest that we seek marriage counseling. If you don't want that, then you need to get counseling for yourself." I continued, "Emma, you are the sunlight and stars for me. I wanted to have a family with you. When I found out that I can't father children, I was hurt. But seeing you hurt is more than I can put up with. We will adopt children if that would make you happy. We can check fertility clinics about enhancements that might help. I just cannot go on sleeping next to a refrigerator as you have been for a while. When I try to hug you, You either back away like I am going to harm you, or you are just like hugging a post. When was the last time you just kissed, hell even spontaneously even smiled at me? I love you with my very being. I am not leaving just because we haven't made love, and I can't be near you when the pain you are in is causing me so much pain. I finally wound down from my spiel. Emma was silent for a minute or two, then asked, "Where will you go? What will you do? When will you come back? If you're gone, how will you know I've gotten better? Please don't leave. To answer your questions, I will be right here in the city. I will keep working. I will not abandon you. I love you. I have to leave. Seeing you hurt like this is causing me so much pain that I am afraid that it will turn into anger. My mother has told me I could stay in the apartment over her garage. Your mother and dad have offered me an apartment in their building. I won't be far. Please, please get some help. I can't take this hurt you are causing me. I will be back when I can see that you love me enough to not shudder when I touch you." She just dropped her head, sobbed, and then snapped and screamed at me. "Find you a hole. Leave when things get tough. Just go. I will see a lawyer before I go to a goddamn shrink. Just go." This tirade was from the mouth of a lady that would not say piss if she was drinking it. I was shocked. I got up and walked to the bedroom and started packing my stuff. As I was packing, there were more than a few tears. I loaded up my car and my small trailer that we used when we went camping. It was not even a quarter full, but I was hoping that I would not be away long. I drove the 20 minutes that it takes to get to my mother's house and started unpacking. About 2 hours later, Mom came up and told me Emma was on the phone. I told her, "Please take a message or have her call my cell phone." After that final tirade, I don't think I want more right now. I continued, "Mom, I'm sorry you were put in the middle of this. I love that woman to pieces, and yet I can almost catch a cold from trying to just get a kiss. I know you probably don't want to know, but we have not made love or just plain sex since we found out I am sterile. I know Emma wants a family. I offered to get a divorce if it would make her happy. I am at a loss as to what to do. I am hoping that my moving out will be enough of a shock to force her to see her own hurt. If it doesn't, I may be here for a long time." I told Mom good night and went to bed. At work the next day, 2 detectives showed up at the construction site and they asked to talk to me. They said that they were following up on the burglary at my house last night. I was stunned. They explained that apparently, someone tried to force a basement window last night about 3 a.m. My wife called the police, and when the sirens got close, whoever it was chased off. They asked me why someone would want to burglarize my house. I explained to them that I had several gadgets that I have invented and some that I am working on. I told them that I had moved out temporarily and that I would go home tonight and check things out. The detective then dropped the bomb. "Sir, we have had to take your wife into the hospital. It looks like she had a psychotic episode. She is in no danger, but the patrolman who responded to the call said she was hysterical. She is now at the psych ward at City Hospital. The man who she was with was told by her to leave the house. I will get right over there to see her. Don't worry about my stuff. That is not worth one hair on her head." I went on, "Thank you and thank all the officers involved. I will do what I can to fix the problems." The fact a man was with her did not register until later the next day. When I got to the hospital, I was told that I was on the excluded visitors list. I would not be able to see Emma. I asked who made up the exclusion list. I was told Emma made some and the doctors made some. They told me that my wife put me on the excluded list. I was pissed. I decided then that that was the last straw. I went back to the apartment. I sulked for about an hour and then decided to be proactive. First, I called the hospital and asked to talk to the doctor. He called me back almost immediately and told me I was also excluded from getting any medical information. More pissed, I called Emma's parents and told them what was going on. They said they were not in agreement with Emma's stance. They promised to keep me informed. I explained what had happened over the last few days. I also told them that Emma's actions have caused me to think I was right to move out. I let them get back to whatever they were doing and then called my mother. She had worked as a paralegal until she retired. I asked her for her best choice for a divorce shark. I explained that Emma was shutting me totally out of her life, so maybe my actions will force her to seek help. I said that maybe if we divorce, she can have the children she is fixated on. She reluctantly gave me the name of Ryan Blackwood. I thanked her and let her get back to what she was doing. I then called the police and asked for a copy of the police report for my insurance. I was told it would be available in a half hour, but needed to be picked up in person. No electronic transfer was legally allowed. I picked up the report, and several things seemed to be wrong. The window that was broke was only 6 inches high by 24 inches wide. No one would be able to get through that space. Then, there were only very small footprints, noted as possibly female or child, in the dirt around the window. Then the final thing was that Emma was not the only person in the house. The other person was a man, at 3 a.m., by the name of Samuel Carter. They were both dressed only in robes. The name sounded familiar, but I could not remember where I had heard it. The report stated that neither occupant had seen who had tried to break in, and that the female occupant was extremely agitated about the fact that both names would be in the police report. Finally, the man in the house comment registered. I then called Emma's work, and the phone was answered by a man named Samuel. I quickly said, "Sorry, wrong number." Now I remembered where I had heard the name. Samuel Carter was a sales associate at the office where Emma worked. I had met him once when she first started working there. I also remembered that his wife was the company owner. What was he doing in my house at 3 a.m.? The next day, I called Ryan Blackwood and was surprised to hear that Ryan was a she. I made an appointment for later that day. I then called work and told them my assistant could handle anything, but I was taking the rest of the week as personal time. My boss called almost immediately and insisted that I report to work ASAP. I faxed my resignation less than 15 minutes later. He called back and apologized and granted the time off. Then I thought about it and sent a second resignation. No more calls from work. When I got to Ryan's office, I asked for a divorce filing and a suit against the office that Emma and Samuel worked at. I also asked for a possible eviction notice, as the house was owned by my company and Emma had no stake in that company. We were renting it from the company that I had set up to market my patents and gadgets. I explained that I had a police report that showed that Emma had a man at the house at 3 a.m. I also explained that I had temporarily left because of some problems with us. The man was there the same night that I left. Ryan told me that as Emma was under a 14-day mandatory hospitalization and that my insurance was paying for her hospitalization, she would void the medical information blackout or I would not authorize payment. She thought that I should immediately move back into the house. I should also cancel all joint credit cards. I should also call the bank and set up withdrawal limits on all joint accounts and to cancel any joint ATM cards. After doing all of the bank things, I went back to the house and found Samuel trying to enter the house. When I pulled into the driveway and blocked his car, he started toward me. I grabbed my cell and called the police non-emergency and asked to talk to an officer. Samuel came up to the car and motioned me to roll the window down. When I shook my head no, grabbed my wallet and showed him my ID, he took off running down the road. I just laughed and asked the officer if they any information on the damage done to my house from the break-in. They said the only damage was the window caused by a drunken neighbor who wandered into the driveway, and when her key would not fit the door, she kicked the window, and when it broke, she ran off. She called the station the next day and told the desk she would pay the damages. I went into the house and into what was our bedroom and found that the dresser drawers that I had emptied had men's clothes in them. I went through all of the closets in the dresser and grabbed all the men's clothes that did not belong and took those out to the garage where we had a totally illegal incinerator. I left the garage door open hoping Samuel would come back. He did as I was putting the last load in the incinerator. I smiled as he was walking up to the door. I called out to him and asked what I could do for him. He saw what I was doing and just shook his head and came in and said, "I probably deserved what you were doing. I thought Emma was divorced. She has been saying that you left her for another woman 6 months ago. So you felt you could move in? I rent this house and Emma has not paid a dime toward the rent. Emma has no claim on it. I moved out 3 days ago because of a freeze from my wife. I told her it was only temporary." I continued, "You and your wife's company will be hearing from my attorney soon." He paled and I laughed, then asked, "Would you like me to move my car so you can leave?" "Oh," I continued. "When you go see Emma, you can tell her that when she gets out, she needs to go to her parents' house because I will be taking all of her stuff there. Also, tell her I now understand the freeze." "One last thing," I screamed. "How long have you been screwing my wife?" He did not answer, just got in his car and I let him out. Then I went back to the house and called a locksmith. I finished the afternoon by making copies of the police report. I made one copy for my insurance company if needed. I also made one copy for Emma's parents if they started to blame me for the problems. Then I put one copy in our safe in the basement. I was planning on putting the original in my personal safe deposit box in the bank. That box also contained all of the patent papers and a bank book where I put the money my patent licensing agreements made me. The job money and about 10% of the patent money were in our joint accounts, and that is all of the money Emma knows about. It is not much, but it is enough that if I have to split it, Emma will come out all right. The hidden money was because I wanted something that was mine only. The house Emma found out about, so she would not be able to go for it in a divorce. It would not be a deal breaker. I spent the next morning moving all of Emma's clothes, makeup, toiletries, and any pictures that did not have me in, into boxes that we had broken down and stored when Emma first moved in. The locksmith showed up in the early afternoon and changed the locks. I took all of the boxes to Emma's parents' apartment building and gave them a copy of the police report. They were not happy, but they took the stuff. I left. Ryan got back to me and said the non-payment threat was enough to get all of the medical information. It turns out Emma was about 6 weeks pregnant and had panicked when she realized the police were going to be finding out about Mr. Carter being at the house at that time. She actually screamed at the officers that arrived to investigate the break-in. Then she started screaming and crying. The officers restrained her and had her committed for a 14-day psychiatric evaluation. She lost the baby, and that really put her over the edge. The doctors wanted to commit her for 90 days as she was almost suicidal. They also noted that her hormones were elevated as if she was taking fertility drugs, but they could not find a prescription from any of the doctors that she identified as her being in their care. The note of the pregnancy was the final straw. I told Ryan that I wanted Emma served after she is released for the hospital. I explained to Ryan that I am virtually sterile and that the sperm that I do have are damaged. I also told her to immediately file suit against the company because they have a clear non-frat policy. I told her to make it painful, but not fatal. Part of the settlement was to be that they both be terminated with prejudice and receive no recommendation or severance package. The suit against the company was filed immediately, and Mrs. Carter informed Ryan through her lawyer that they would fight it. Ryan told the other attorney that we had proof of unprofessional conduct by both of them. She did not bring up the pregnancy but did mention the police report of Samuel being in the house at 3 a.m. Their attorney told Ryan he would get back to them as his client never mentioned that fact. Ryan said she may not have known. At the mention of her, the lawyer told Ryan he would recommend a settlement. When the lawyers got back together, the settlement was reached. I got a decent amount of money and Samuel and Emma were both fired. Samuel's wife filed for divorce based on the police report. Samuel had told her he was visiting a customer site and had been there that night to get an early start. I got all of that from one of the office people that Emma worked with. Emma walked out of the hospital before the commitment papers were filed. She was served on the sidewalk outside the hospital. She disappeared, and I didn't hear from her for over a year. She did sign and return the divorce papers, but she asked for nothing from the marriage, not even the split that she was entitled to. Almost 15 months after the divorce was final, I received an apology letter from Emma. It was postmarked from a small town in Montana. She did not give any details of her life after the divorce. The letter was just an apology for the pain she caused me. Samuel had a run-in with a baseball bat the day after I got the apology from Emma. It seems that he had seduced the wife of a made man while he was in New York. I almost felt his pain. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
I know this sounds absolutely insane, so bear with me. I, 38 female, have an unusual domestic situation. My best friend for my entire life has been Adam, 38 male. We've known each other since we were babies. Adam is gay. I was the first person he came out to, and he was my roommate for a long time after his parents found out and things got ugly. He married his husband, John, 39, who was also our close college friend. So we've all been tight for a long time. I've decided that I'm not the marrying type, but I did want to have children, and Adam and John also wanted a family. So we decided to kill two birds with one stone. We have two sons, young grammar school and pre-tween, both of whom are biologically mine, while Adam and John are each the biological father of one of the boys. It's worked out way better than we ever could have hoped. This year, we decided to go in together to get a bigger house and live together. The boys are getting to the age that they can do with their own rooms, and all of us adults have been roommates before, so we know we live well together. It would simplify things a lot. The boys love us all being in the same house, and it's a good arrangement for everyone. Adam's been talking to his parents for the last couple of years, and they're trying to repair their relationship. He's been feeling positive about it. He asked and we all agreed that they could visit the Saturday after Thanksgiving and meet the boys. Adam had already explained the living situation because we have always thought of the kids as all of ours, and the kids call us all their parents. It didn't occur to me that the bio-parentage would be an issue for Adam's parents. Things were okay, and everyone behaved until we put the kids to bed. I went to my room to give the others some space to talk. I heard Adam raise his voice a little, but decided not to get involved. Not long after, his mom knocked on my door and asked to talk. It boiled down to the fact that she and her husband wanted to know which of the boys was their grandson. They both favor me now more than Adam and John, so it's not obvious. I suspected something was up, so I told her she needed to talk to Adam and John about it. They refused to answer the question because both boys were their children, so she wanted me to. It turned into an uncomfortable situation. Adam and his dad aren't speaking, and I've gotten some messages from his mom trying to backtrack, but pressing for info simultaneously. A friend of mine said that while it was smart not to disclose without consulting Adam and John, we're delving into idiot territory by refusing to explain the biorelationships involved. And it's not wrong for the grandparents to want to know, especially since John's parents know. They only know that because they were involved with helping us with the pregnancies and when the boys were tiny, since my parents passed on. However, am I the idiot for refusing to tell my son's grandparents which of my children is their grandson? Not the idiot. This is a clear-cut attempt to establish which kid it's okay to abuse. Let them know that until they're ready to accept both, which includes never knowing, because they have demonstrated that they can't be trusted with this information, they will not be seeing either grandchild because neither one is safe around them. The biological grandson will be the only one to get an inheritance, birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, graduation, and a car. They will take a DNA sample the first chance they get. These people are gross. That's what I was thinking. I have a step-aunt who did a DNA test to prove her grandchildren weren't her sons. Boy, did that cause a huge rift when she kept bragging she did it. She even doubled down when they turned out to be her grandchildren, saying that she was looking out for her family. OP, this is sadly blatant evidence that they never intended to repair the relationship. They just want access to their grandkid. No good can come of that. Poor Adam. What a cruel action on their part. Your friend is wrong. It's not your job to break the boundaries your kid's father has set. Both kids are their grandkids. The only people who should care about biology are their doctors, and only for medical history. Great job standing up for your best friend and helping him enforce his boundaries. By the way, this family arrangement, beautiful. You have a unique family, and the grandparents can either accept that they have two grandsons or have no grandsons. I was at an observation deck yesterday. It's one of those that has a glass floor as part of it. A guy was there trying to get his wife and kid to go on the glass floor so he could take a picture. The kid looked about 3 and terrified. His wife wasn't interested either. When she went to the bathroom, he picked up his kid and went on the glass floor. The kid was frozen stiff and looked pale as a ghost. The dad got his selfie though. When he walked by me, I was telling my boyfriend that if we got married and had kids, and he did something so idiotic and traumatizing to our kids, I would be angry. The guy overheard me and said I should mind my own business. I said I wasn't talking to him, but I did repeat myself and say that he was an idiot for putting his kid in such a scary place when the kid didn't want to be there. By this time, his wife had come out and heard us arguing. Then she got angry at him for doing this against their kid's obvious desire. We walked away, but my boyfriend said I shouldn't have started crap with some random guy terrorizing his kid. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He interrupted a conversation that you were having with your boyfriend. He chose to bring you into the situation, so you had the right to defend yourself in what you said in a private conversation. The guy was being a selfish idiot. Maybe you weren't the best source to hear it from, but he needed to hear it nonetheless. I believe the kid needs to hear it too. I mean, I agree OP's not the idiot, but this reasoning is so dumb, LMAO. If you have a conversation about someone who's within earshot, they definitely have the right to respond. OP absolutely started the altercation by talking about the dad where he can overhear. Again, I think doing this is totally justified in this situation. But let's not act like the OP was minding their own business. LOL. You are the idiot. As a bystander stranger in public, you're a lot less qualified to judge how this impacts that kid than the dad is. He knows the kid's personality, expressions, ways of communicating, and how they've reacted in the past to being put outside their comfort zone. So you need some humility that your gut reaction about what this experience was like for the kid may very well be wrong, and the dad may be more qualified to know. Meanwhile, your behavior seems idiotic. You just happened to badmouth this guy within earshot rather than waiting until he was gone or talking quieter. Then when, of course, he hears you, you write him off that you weren't talking to him, which is doubtful if you said it so he could hear it. You weren't just talking to your boyfriend. You wanted this guy to hear, and you wanted his reaction. It just seems all about making yourself feel good based on confrontation. So 2 months ago, my daughter-in-law, 26 female, gave birth to my lovely grandson. My family and I are Bulgarian Orthodox. Before my grandson was born, I told my son and his wife that I was going to pay for all baptismal expenses and any childcare expenses for the first year, as long as they gave the kid an Orthodox name. They both agreed without much consideration. They named him David Antoine. David is the Orthodox name, and Antoine in honor of the uni professor who mentored both my son and his wife, and who sadly passed away during the global issue. The thing is, while my daughter-in-law converted to Orthodoxy, her parents are atheists of African origin, Ivory Coast, who moved to France. They really wanted their grandchildren to have a traditional Ivorian name. So 2 months ago, when the baby was born and they found out about the name, they threw a massive fit, directed primarily at my wife and I, name-calling, cursing, accusations, and frankly, I wasn't having any of it. I told them that they were insensitive and insulting to not only my religion, but also that of their daughter, to their daughter's decision, and to the mentor of both their daughter and my son. I told them they're uninvited to the baptism due to their behavior, unless they apologize to the parents of our grandchild. Both my son and his wife agreed with my decision. The baptism is next week, and while I've been in no contact with them, my son said that from the discussions they've had, they're still pretty angry and unwilling to apologize, but they said that they'll come to the baptism, whether I like it or not. My sister tells me I've been acting like an idiot towards them, and I should let them join next week if they show up. I maintain that they'll not be allowed at the after party. Edit. When I said they'll not be allowed at the baptism, I meant at the after party, which will take place in my home. Only church officials can kick people out of the ceremony itself, and unless they're disruptive, I don't see a reason they'd be kicked out. My son and his wife paid for their own wedding. She converted of her own free will because it's what she believes in. If you name your kid like I want, I'll pay you. Definitely you are the idiot for using money to manipulate the outcome you wanted with your grandchild. In regards to your in-laws, it's unclear if you've given them any other reason to think that you're a bigot. I can only wonder what your reaction would have been if they'd come up with a better package and had a secular naming ceremony. Frankly, you strike me as an unreliable narrator. Yes, exactly. If the roles were reversed, imagine how upset OP would be. That's a lot of money, and it's effectively blackmail. Of course, blame partly lies on the son and the daughter-in-law, as they could have still said no, but it sounds like an offer that most new parents could scarcely afford to refuse. Also, this wasn't a daughter-in-law's decision. She was flat out bribed by them to make a decision in their favor. Jesus, OP, why can't the parents of this baby make the decision about the name? You're financially incentivizing your level of input into a decision that isn't yours, and now the in-laws are upset that they didn't get a say. Back off, dinosaurs. You had your turn to name your own kids. This isn't your child to raise, and using your money to blackmail your son is wrong, especially when it separates your daughter-in-law and grandson from their culture, religion, and heritage. That's ludicrous. I, 28 female, am currently taking care of my niece, Tina, tween, while my brother's out of town for work for a month. I work from home, so I temporarily moved to my brother's house to look after her. Tina's mother passed away, but her maternal grandparents live in the same neighborhood. My brother told me they visit the grandparents weekly, and sometimes Tina will play with the cousins, as her aunt and uncle also often visit her grandparents. Tina has plenty of toys. She's also tidy and usually picks up after herself, so I don't really know what toys she has. Just a few hours ago, Tina's aunt, Wendy, dropped by with her son, Bill, tween, and asked Tina to return some figures that were her stepson's. I asked Tina for them, but she refused, saying she won the figures in their poker game and was entitled to them. Apparently, their older cousins played poker together at their grandparents' house and taught the younger ones to play. Tina said that Bill wanted to play with her tablet, but she refused. The older cousins then suggested they played poker for it. An hour on Tina's tablet versus something Bill has that Tina would want in return. The only things Tina thought were worth an hour on her device were the Star Wars figures. Wendy accidentally unloaded from her car and made Bill keep an eye on. So Bill wagered the figures, and he lost all but 2 of them to Tina, with their older tween cousin as their witness. Wendy then needed to hurry home and grabbed Bill, not noticing the difference in the bag. The figures were Bill's half-brothers, who left the bag in Wendy's car. He was panicking when he noticed all but 2 of his figures were missing. So Bill was forced to tell his mom and brother what happened. Wendy asked for the figures back. They're not particularly expensive, like $25 to $30 each, but Bill's brother did save up for them. Tina refused to give them back, saying she won them fair and square, and their cousin was the witness to the game. Wendy said she couldn't hold a child poker game responsible for the loss of actual properties, and that Tina needed to return the figures. I offered to call my brother and did, but his coworker picked up and said that my brother was in a very important meeting and people not directly involved could not interrupt. My brother forgot his phone, so he would be unreachable until the end of the meeting, 6 or 7 hours from now. So I left a message asking him to call me back. I told Wendy we'd have to wait for my brother to make his decision. As for now, Tina will keep the figures until her father says otherwise. Wendy said she didn't have 6 hours to wait. She said I should be able to see how messed up this is and make Tina return the figures. Again, I refused to make her, saying I personally thought Tina earned the figures, and my brother was the only one who could make Tina return them. Wendy called me an idiot for stealing, and as she could not wait around, took her son back, saying she would call later. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Those figurines were not Bill's to gamble. Tina's received stolen property, and you're refusing to return them because your tween niece won them in a poker game? You're supposed to be the adult in charge here. Once it was made clear that they weren't Bill's toys, by not returning them, both you and Tina were no better than thieves. Way to teach the kid values. How many figurines are we talking about here? Because if only 2 were left, it makes me think it's probably upwards of $100 worth of toys at least, that a kid saved up for, and you're refusing to return. Do you really need someone else to point out how crappy a move that is? Honestly, the fact that Tina swindled her cousin into putting up permanent ownership of items in return for a shot at temporary use of her stuff is enough to be worrying by itself. Such an inclination towards being a rip-off artist should, in my opinion, be nipped in the bud, hard. Watch Tina. She appears to be lacking empathy and will grow into a snake. Wow, I get to go against the grain, not the idiot, because it's entirely reasonable to have the father handle the issue and make the decisions himself when he becomes available. This is about kids' toys, so it's in no way time sensitive. The aunt can easily wait for a day to have this resolved. Just gotta tell her stepson she's sorry for causing the inconvenience. The aunt is the idiot for trying to pressure OP into not consulting her brother. The aunt's also the idiot for failing to teach her son that you don't give away things you don't even own. If he broke or lost them, the blame would also obviously be on him, no? Yep, I'm here for this one. It's surprising how you're being scolded here for wanting to ask the kid's parent how to parent their kid. Holy crap. They're tweens, though. Doubt either of them knew what the figures were worth, beyond the fact that they were toys. They probably gambled them because it's the only thing Bill had on him, and probably multiple games, not 3 figures in one go. I'm amazed that people think Tina is some kind of mastermind. She just won something and now considers it hers, probably not really thinking about Bill's brother. If the 2 tweens played a game and the winner got all the sweets, but then the loser's parent demanded the sweets be given back, even though had they lost it, it would have stuck, that would seem very unfair. My son, male 19, loves to just wear his underwear in his room for whatever reason. He'll throw on a shirt and pants if he has to step out to go to the bathroom, come to the kitchen, talk to anybody, etc. But otherwise, he's just in his underwear. I've, male 48, told him multiple times that I dislike this and that he has to wear clothes in case his mom or I have to come into his room. He says that if we start knocking, he'll throw something on, and then it'll be okay. I told him he still had to wear clothes, and then he made another excuse and said it was too hot. In the summer, I tend to set the thermostat to around 85 or 87 to save money. I turn it down to around 80 to 82 once the sun goes down, because then it takes less energy. He says that it makes him sweat when he's just sitting around not doing anything, and I rejoin by saying, if it's so hot, go spend a couple hours outside, see if it still feels hot. We live in Oklahoma, and it routinely gets up to 100 in the summers. He rolled his eyes at this, and we just kept arguing. I'm wondering now if I'm the idiot. Am I? You are the idiot. Huge one. 87 degrees in the summer? That's torturous. Your ridiculous temperature requirements are the reason he's wearing only underwear in the first place. You want him to get dressed? Keep the house at a humane temperature. 87 degrees in the house? I would friggin' die. I don't care how many clothes the kid is wearing. That's inhumane. OP's probably the kind of guy who lives by my house, my rules, right down to micromanaging his son's room because it financially still belongs to OP. Well, OP will learn one day when he has his own room in a nursing home and can't have any more control over it. I'm not trying to be rude here, but this isn't how you treat someone you love. You need to see a therapist and figure out why you need to control your son's life down to the micromanagement level. There is no good reason why him sitting in his own room, his safe space, the only physical space he can call his, bothers you whatsoever. Go see a professional and repair what's left of your relationship with your son and use your dang air conditioner.